You've had so many roles at Huddle. You've been the CTO, you've been head of product, head of marketing, you're now the EVP of strategy. How do you...
It's an amazing made-up title, isn't it?
Is that the executive vice president of strategy?
It is.
Oh, okay, all right.
I don't know either. It sounds important, though.
It does. I once worked for a company, and I had the role Chief Business Development Officer. That was my role, CBDD, yeah.
CBDO.
Yeah, anyways. Why the role change, and how do you find yourself?
What do you actually do, maybe?
Yeah.
That's a really good question. Well, so firstly, I think the title we chose was just because it's so vanilla and broad brush. It lets me get involved in absolutely any conversation. Not only with the guys internally, but I can go and talk to VCs. I can talk to our alliance partners. I can talk to companies that we might be, looking to either acquire or looking to work with. I can talk at events. I can do anything. Ali and I we've always kind of divvied up the roles. He was CEO, but looked after the business and operations side. In the very beginning, I looked after the product and technology piece. And I think to answer your question, the reason for the change was just that, I'm a pretty good all-rounder, definitely talk the talk, but, as we've grown and as we've been able to hire better people, it makes sense to me to step back and bring in people who are better than me. I think the worst thing that any entrepreneur can do is keep their arms around stuff, because then the company will never grow.
Do you see that all the time? I mean, you must walk in these circles of all these very successful startups. Do you see it sometimes where you're like, you shouldn't be the CTO anymore, or you shouldn't be the CEO anymore?
Yeah, you do, and I think that in the very successful startups, they realize when they should and when they shouldn't be. I mean, what's always nice is that when you see a CEO who is who's been able to grow with the company. They start off as just your typical founder CEO, but they've got all the makings, the composure and the smarts to go on and potentially be a public company CEO.
Right.
How do you acquire talent? Because as an entrepreneur, at a very early stage, it's difficult. You may not have the cash to give them. You may not have the the $1 billion sort of road for them to jump on board. But how did you acquire talent?
You grew fast after you got your first $12 million. You had to scale fast.
We did, yeah. I mean, I think that when I look back, and again, this kind of comes back to my point about Ivan, one of the biggest issues that we had, first of all, was that we didn't have a really, really strong technical founder. I was the technical founder, and I'm a pretty awful coder. I haven't written a line of code in about 3 years now. And even when I was kind of more actively involved, I was still kind of crap. And what that meant was that I think the stronger the technical founder you have, the easier it is to draw in talent. So we had to really kind of just do it by hook or by crook. We hustled, we probably told a few fibs here and there, but we got people in. And our first technical hire was a guy who I found on monster.com, and he was based out in the Czech Republic. His name was Bohus. And Bohus was interested in moving to England. He was interested in working for a startup. He was a kind of traditional kind of software engineer, software developer, but he was cheap. He wanted to come, so we made him an offer. He came over. His English was terrible. He was an incredibly strange guy, very smart, really, really lovely, but kind of odd. And in the interview, which we did over Skype, I asked him about his hobbies, and he said, "Well, I like computer science. If I wasn't writing software for a living, I would do that in spare time. I like disco dance. I like weightlift. I like inline skate." I was like, "That's a good set of hobbies."
Yeah.
Does he ever do them all together?
I actually never saw him in his inline skates,
okay.
But he came to us. His English was pretty terrible, so we put him through language school as well. He missed his mum, so his mum came out and lived with him in his 1-bedroom flat. We never asked any questions about that. And it was great. And he had a very kind of weird, very Eastern European dress sense as well. Wore some really terrible T-shirts. I think on the day that Eden Ventures came around, before we'd raised our A round, because they wanted to meet some of the team, Boas was wearing a T-shirt that had a graphic of 3 sperm on it, and one of them had a thought bubble that said, "Emergency, we're in the ass." It's like, okay, you don't get to talk to the investors today, Bovis, because we don't have any spare T-shirts for you to wear.
Exactly.
Is he still with you?
He is not, I'm afraid, no. So he, in the end, his father got sick and he had to move back to the Czech Republic. So he actually worked for us remotely for a while, but we've always been big proponents of having the team together here in London. and so it didn't work out. But we're still in touch. I spoke to him just a couple of months ago.
And are there certain tests that people have to pass to get the hire from you? I mean, do they have to meet, all the top people? Do they? I mean, I know Ivan was very specific about when he hires. They have to meet everyone in the team.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of harder now, obviously, that the team is larger. But the second hire that we made, and really this was who we built the technology team around, was a guy called Bob. I think Bob, his Twitter handle was always and still is Bob from Huddle. And so, Bob is kind of Huddle engineering embodied. He's incredibly smart. He's a little bit of an oddball, but just an awesome guy. And in the interview, in fact, I interviewed Bob remotely because I was at the lawyer's office signing our first term sheet, and Bob was sitting at my desk. We talked, I quizzed him on technology. We actually he did a technical test for us as well. And I said, beyond, writing code, what else are you going to do? And he thought, he paused, and he said, I'm going to build you a team of peers. And God bless him, 6 years on, or 7 years on, Bob is still with us, and Bob built us an amazing team of peers. And because Bob's so technically strong and so well respected, we've been able to build the team around him.
Gosh, that's really what you want to hear when you're hiring someone. I'll build you a team of peers. It's like, just give me a hug, right?